joining us now. You see him on K-Jazz, Jazz Plus, SEG Plus. You hear him with us on pregame, the one and only Mike Smith. What's up, Mike?
Hi, Jake and Ben. How are you?
We're doing well. We're talking about right now the ideal role for some of these players on this Jazz roster and who actually has the luxury of playing what their actual role will be in the NBA versus, kind of maybe being forced to play a role or position above who they are.
Right.
Meaning Keontae George, a lot of times right now, has to be the Jazz's either go-to option like he was last night or number 2 option. And I don't know if that's who he is in his prime. As an NBA player yourself, Mike, how important is it? Did you see that, Kevin McHale was probably the second best player on the team, and he got to play that because it was great that he had Larry Bird in front of him, but might have miscast being asked to do something else.
Yeah, no, it's very true. And on a veteran team like that, a winning team like that, I guess you can make some sacrifices. You can play different roles, especially when you have a generational star on my Celtic teams. It just made everything better for everybody. It made everything easier. And the fact that they had played together and won together made everything easier. It made it more difficult on me when I got there because I was joining a team that was so established. And it was just such a different league then. But I think there's merit to what you're saying. I think this season, as we all know, is about development, improvement, and progress and taking steps towards getting better every day. I think we've seen that from Walker. I think Walker has really rebounded well from, last year's, let's say, step backwards, if it were, a couple steps based on where he was his rookie year. But I think it was more conditioning and maybe even fatigue and injury related, based on his summer with the national team and then coming out and then early hand injury and never really got into a rhythm. Whereas this year, he's starting to show who he was the first year. But it's unfair to judge the players. It's unfair to judge the coach, but we can still make our assessments, right? I like the coach. I love what I'm seeing from a Bryce Sensabaugh. Like the last 4 games he's played, it's 24 a game in about 25 minutes, and his plus minus is plus 36 in those 4 games. Like when he's on the floor, they're doing good things. They're not losing. That's a pretty good little, I know, small sample. But I also ran some numbers. Jake may know this, but I ran some numbers and calculated the 19 games in his career. He's played 25 minutes or more, and he averages 17, 18 points a game. Like he's just a proven commodity on that end, and it's now seen visually. So the losses are tough to swallow. As a broadcaster, the losses are tough to deal with, right? Even though you're not in the trenches. But I still kind of take it with a grain of salt and see the big picture. That's my aim with this year.
I will not bias your take with my own hot take, so I'll just ask this way. Where are you at on LaMelo Ball?
It's funny. I saw a guy in the stands last night in the arena on the concourse wearing a LaMelo Ball shirt. And he was with another guy, and he was wearing a Markkanen shirt, like a jersey. And I said, like, you guys are buddies? And they, yeah, we're best buddies. Huge hoop fans? Yeah, huge hoop fans. And I go, you must be from California, speaking to the guy in the ball jersey. And he's like, Chino Hills and that. And he goes, no, I'm from here. I go, you like LaMelo Ball? He goes, yeah, one of my favorites. I love all the balls. Have you heard the latest song by the one brother? I'm like, no, I haven't. All I know is Lonzo doesn't play, and LaMelo gets hurt a lot too, but he's pretty good, which probably sums up my thoughts. But I don't know, Jake. Like, he takes the second most shots of anyone in the history of the NBA, and he takes the most threes of anyone in the history of the NBA. Like, if you look at career numbers, he takes 13 threes a game. He takes 25 field goal attempts a game. Only Kobe has taken more shots per game in the history of the league. Granted, he did show me some stuff last night. Like, the guy's got some game. Like those buckets down the stretch where he used his body and attacked the rim and then used the rim as his ally and kind of made reverse and, side layups and stuff that were critical hoops down the stretch. I was like, okay, he's not a chop. He's pretty good, and he can pass, and he moves the ball, and he's just not my kind of player.
Let me ask you this, Mike, real quick. Let me ask you this, because you know Larry Bird personally. If Larry Bird were on the Charlotte Hornets and he watched LaMelo Ball come up the floor and razzle-dazzle between the legs, do a high step, like Deion Sanders going to the end zone, and then take a step back 30-foot prayer, I'm curious, what do you think Larry would say about that?
It's not that he would say anything then. He would have already established in practice the pecking order, both verbally and visually and, practically. Like I'm the guy and the ball needs to be in my hands. And if you do that crap again, you won't be here.
Yeah.
Like it would have already been established long before. There would have been no LaMelo Ball antics on a court on a veteran team like mine. There just wouldn't. I'm going to make, not enemies, but I'm going to make people not mad at me, but they're going to say, okay, I don't believe you. But there are 100 guys in the league today that would have never made the league when I played. And I'm being totally honest. They would have been laughed out of the league. It's just true. And people say, oh, yeah, you're just defending your era 40 years ago. You're just defending, I'm just telling you. Yes, there were 150 less players in the league then. But guys wouldn't have made the team. They wouldn't. We had 12 guys on a team and one roster spot for an injured reserve. So some teams had 13, most teams had 12. And people say, well, the league's way better now. It's way more athletic. I go, no, it isn't. And it's not better. My Celtic team players 1 through 12 would dominate your team 1 through 12. And your players 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 on your roster today would not have made our team. They would have been 13 through 18, and they wouldn't have been on the roster. What? Yeah, great college players would come into our training camp and would not make the team. I'm like, that guy scored 22 a game in college, and he had 8 assists. He was a stud. He couldn't crack the team, not the lineup. It's just a reality. So I'm not saying that LaMelo would not have made an NBA roster back then. His antics wouldn't have survived. But I don't know that he would have been, an all-star.
He would have been a better player, I bet, if the antics went away.
You're probably right. He would have been forced to, walk the line and learn the game the right way. It's just different. So it's so hard to get into that discussion and compare eras. But it's just my own thoughts. But I'm not saying he wouldn't have made a team. He would have made a team. Would he be a starting point guard? I don't know. I don't know. Would he have been the 8th man? Maybe. But anyway, I don't know that he's a winning player, if you're asking me today. And that doesn't mean he's not a good player. He's a really good player. But is he a winning player? Is he a player you want? Is he a player you'd seek and desire and trade for? I don't know.
I think what you're bringing up in pecking order specifically is an interesting term, because as the Jazz are seeking to get a top 3 pick of their own, a top 5 pick of their own, LaMelo goes to a Charlotte team, and I don't even remember the entire roster at the point, but goes in and is basically handed everything, right? He becomes the number 1 guy. There's really no competition for it. There's no question. They set up an entire season to get that number 1 guy, which the Jazz are kind of doing as well. Though I would be surprised, Mike, even if the Jazz win the number 1 overall pick and get Cooper Flagg or get Dylan Harper number 2 overall, if they would just say, okay, now it's your team and we're going to let you do whatever you want, even though I think both of those players have shown to have better traits coming into the NBA than LaMelo did, the route that he took. I think the Jazz are trying to establish a culture to place these guys in, not to wait to get this guy and then develop a culture around them.
100%. Don't let me jump in if...
No, go ahead. No, I'm curious if that's how you viewed it as somebody who has played.
I totally agree. They're building a culture here that's different. And just look at where Will Hardy comes from. Okay, so he comes from, in essence, a Popovich tree, right? That's the beginning of his pro basketball knowledge. Comes from there, and not that Tim Duncan didn't come right in and dominate. He did, right? He came in, and for all his years, they're a playoff contending championship team. He's, in my opinion, the greatest power forward of all time, given the 5 titles. But other guys came in and kind of had to earn their keep with a Pop, and that's a Parker, and that's a Ginobili, and that's other players kind of had to come in. Now, granted, they're not the number 1 pick overall, but you could argue that Tony Parker should have been a top 5 pick, and you could certainly argue that Ginobili, taken 57th or whatever he was, should have been a top 5 pick. But we just didn't know enough, or maybe the Spurs did and, got such a steal, but the guy's just a complete baller and a winner and a champion, right? Olympic gold medal, European League MVPs and titles and NBA titles. But like Sean Elliott's my good friend, he's a broadcaster for the Spurs, and he tells me story upon story upon story of Pop just screaming bloody murder at Ginobili at the beginning. Like, what the F are you doing? like what are you doing? Don't do that. Don't do that. And Ginobili would say in his broken English, Pop, I do what I do. I do what I do. You're soy kin soy. I am what I am. I do what I do. And Sean would just laugh and say, this is the most hilarious, clash you've ever seen of this artist trying to conform and Pop trying to make him conform, and eventually they found a middle ground that worked. But I think Will Hardy comes from that line of thinking, right, that together we'll do it. And so if they did get a Cooper flag, which would be super cool because I think the kid's a stud, just how cool would that be? Nobody's going to hand him the reins and just say, okay, shoot it 30 times and, we'll see what becomes of you and we'll see how we fit around you. No, I don't think that's what's going to happen.
All right, Mike, before we let you go, Ben, did you know that Mike is a movie guy? He's
okay.
He appreciates the cinema.
A cinephile.
You're putting me on the spot.
No.
I'm Jake, and go ahead.
This is an easy one because Ben and I do this silly thing on Wednesday where we do drafts and then people get to vote. So I just want to know which list you'd vote for. All right. So the topic is best musicians turned actors. All right, or best acting performances by a musician. All right.
Oh, it's not Harry Connick.
Okay, here we go. Which list is better? Here's one list: Alice Cooper, Wayne's World, Billy Idol, Wedding Singer, Wayne Newton, Vegas Vacation, Will Smith, Independence Day, and Cher, Moonstruck. That's one list.
That's one list in order?
Yeah, in order of where we drafted them. So that's one list.
Or I have to judge them collectively, those 5?
Yep, or this one. Frank Sinatra, Manchurian Candidate, Eminem in 8 Mile, Mark Wahlberg in The Fighter, Dolly Parton, Straight Talk, and Randy Travis in The Rainmaker.
Oh, wow. Well, the second list is better collectively.
Well, Mike, it was good to have you, Mike. We got to go. Yeah, we got to go to break. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you, Mike.
Wait. But the first list had the 2 best actors.
Well, there we go. Mike, talk more. We got some
Will
time.
And Cher.
Yeah.
You guys are fun. It's good seeing you guys. And
you trying to tell me that Will Smith is a better actor than Marky Mark? I think not.
That's actually a good question.
One of them has an Oscar.
Ridiculous Oscar that barely counts.
You know who I didn't like? Not a musician, but you know who I didn't like and now I have greater appreciation for is Billy Bob Thornton.
Okay.
I didn't like him. I don't know why I didn't like him. I just didn't like him. And then I just watched Landman, and he crushes it in Landman on Paramount or whatever. And I'm like, okay, he's fantastic. Like, that guy can act. He's hilarious, and maybe it's because I like the series, but what can I do for you guys?
No, I'm just trying now.
Make your life better?
I'm just trying now to think if my wife came to me and said, I want you to wear a vial of my blood around your neck if I'd do it.
Have you ever done any TV, not sports? Have you done any acting in your life, Mike?
Ben, you come up with the best questions. No. There was a spoof movie filmed in L.A. called an Alan Smithy project or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that ever made it to mainstream, but I was one of the extras because there's a basketball scene in Staples Center, and I'm a young, 38-year-old broadcaster for the Clippers, and so they needed guys who could shoot and play, so I dressed up. And smartly, I should say, when they handed out jerseys, I grabbed a jersey with the last name on the back was the name of one of the producers of the movie. So instead of grabbing Smith or Davis or Johnson or Williams, I saw the producer, which was some Jewish name. I can't remember if it was Steinberg or whatever, and I just grabbed his jersey because I knew it would get more air.
It'll get on. Yeah, it'll get on.
Alan, so I'm in that movie, but not more than 8 seconds or so.
Alan Smithy is the name directors used to use when there was a bad movie made, and they didn't want their name attached, so they would use that as a pseudonym to bury a bad movie and not get credit.
Oh, that's kind of hilarious.
It was a bad movie. It was a whole spoof on OJ and all sorts of things. It was kind of a crazy one, but I do love the cinema, and I'm glad we're finally making movies again because during COVID there wasn't a lot of movies, and my wife and I loved the movies.
Well, you know that Ben's brother is a big deal in Hollywood, right?
No, I don't.
Yeah, maybe we can.
But I knew Ben had ties. I didn't know the reason why.
I got different ties too. I got lots of ties.
Really?
That's cool.
No. Ben's brother is super talented. Done a bunch of stuff you've seen, I'm sure.
We'll talk, Mike.
And does Ben get any roles as John Mayer's double? Is what I want to know.
I need to try.
Is your celebrity comp for Ben John Mayer?
No, well, he's already told me Timothy Chalamet also, so I need to do.
Oh, yeah, those are the two comps for Ben. Have you not seen his flowing locks and his handsome cheekbones? He's John Mayer or Timothy Chalamet.
I need to start doing stand-in work.
I don't know
Next
about
thing you
that.
know, he's going to be singing, "Come with me." Right?
See, I don't know. Ben gives off Drew Carey vibes to me for some reason.
Drew Carey is heavy and blonde and wears glasses, and Ben is, svelte and tall and
he's like a slim, dark-haired, no glasses Drew Carey. Spitting image.
I don't see that.
Mike, you're the best.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, see you guys.
See you, buddy.